everyone, and welcome back to Kitten Lady and Friends. It's my interview series where I'm talking to some of the most fascinating experts in cat welfare. I'm having so much fun so far. I hope that you are too. I want to again thank Royal Canin for partnering with me as part of their ongoing Catology series. And I want to remind you that we do have a kitten cam. We've got a kitten cam where we're going to be able to check in on all of the babies throughout the session. So I'm super excited about you being able to see all of my babies with me. Oh, there they are. So without further ado, let's introduce the human guest this week. Her name is Dr. Mikel Delgado, and she is the co-author of one of my favorite books ever, Total Cat Mojo. This book is the ultimate guide to life with your cat. I recommend it to every single person who has a cat, who cares about cats. This is going to just give you so much information about cat behavior, and that's really what Mikel is all about. Mikel is an expert in cat behavior. We've done a lot of events together. We speak at a lot of the same conferences and conventions. Oh my gosh, these photos are really silly from cat camp. So there we are. I mean, I just absolutely adore everything that Dr. Mikel Delgado does. I've learned a lot about behavior from her, so I'm excited for her to be here to share everything she knows with all of you. And welcome, Mikel. Hi.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm really, really excited. I feel like every time I get a chance to talk with you, I just have like 1,000 questions for you. So I'm so excited to have this conversation. I kind of want to start with just like, you have a very unique job. You are a cat behavior scientist who gets to study the behavior of cats and kittens every day. And I'm curious, like, how did you come to that? How does that happen? How does somebody become a cat scientist?
It definitely was not like my childhood dream, like, oh, I'm going to be a scientist or even work with cats, even though I loved cats when I was a kid. But it really just didn't occur to me that this was a career path. And so, I have to be honest, I dropped out of college. What I really wanted to do was move to California and play in rock bands, which is that's what I did. So I was definitely not on the path to being a scientist. And it wasn't until one of my cats died and I started volunteering at an animal shelter and realized, like, whoa, people like make their living working with animals and helping animals. And so it really started in that animal shelter. And I think a lot of people who work with animals professionally perhaps got their start from an experience like that. And volunteer experience turned into a full-time job at the shelter. I worked at the SPCA in San Francisco for about 8 years, and then I left in 2008 to start my consulting business because at that point I realized, like, behavior was everything as far as cats are concerned. That was the reason a lot of cats ended up in the shelter in the first place. It really has a big impact on the cat-owner relationship, and I really wanted to do what I could to better understand it and also help people. So I started Feline Minds with a good friend and colleague of mine. I went back to school, so that was a big decision. It was like, okay, I'm going to finish my degree, and then I decided to get a PhD, which is definitely not a fast track to any career. It was 7 years of
Sure. What is your PhD in?
It's in psychology, and so it was with an emphasis on animal behavior and cognition. So I actually did my dissertation on squirrel behavior and also did some other studies while I was in grad school on the cat-owner relationship. But yeah, I spent a lot of time chasing squirrels around outside. So after 7 years of doing research and working with a research mentor, I got my PhD, and then you have to find a job after that. And so I was, able to basically get funding to go work at UC Davis. So I've been at UC Davis for almost 3 years as a postdoctoral researcher. So that's what you do after you get your PhD. You're a postdoc. And basically, so I'm a full-time researcher at the School of Veterinary Medicine at UC Davis. I work with Dr. Tony Buffington, who has definitely been working with cats forever. He's very involved with the effects of environmental enrichment on the health of cats. And I also work with Dr. Melissa Bain, who is one of the clinical behaviorists at UC Davis. And at UC Davis, I have 2 areas of research. I'm working with basically looking at how the environment affects the health and behavior of adult cats. So that includes enrichment, whether or not they live with other cats. And then I also, as you know, do a lot of work with neonatal kittens. I've turned to you actually for a lot of information when I started, because I was definitely new to the idea of neonates. I worked with a lot of kittens in the shelter, but had not worked with neonatal kittens. And primarily, I have an emphasis in my research on the effects of being orphaned. So what does that early maternal separation mean for these kittens? And what I really love about my research is working with fostered and adopted animals. So all of my research takes place in home environments. So I really rely on the community to help me collect my data, and so we can learn about cats in their natural environment, which is human homes. Or one natural environment.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, and when you call to mind like ideas of animal research, it can sound like something really scary or, you know, in some cases maybe even cruel. But the work that you do is all like, you know, observation based, like looking at what's going on in foster homes. And some of the things that you've been able to teach me just through your research have impacted the way that I do my foster care. So I'm so grateful that somebody's actually putting some numbers and data behind all of the things that maybe we kind of anecdotally believe to be true, or maybe they are true, maybe they're not true. You know, we don't know unless there's research. So I love that. I kind of want to know, like, you know, when we think about animal behavior, I feel like if you go to Barnes and Noble, you're going to see like 1,000 books on dog behavior. If you turn on the TV, there's so many shows and resources about dog behavior. Even in shelters, there's a lot of information about like dog behavior programs. You know, people know they can go to their puppy classes and stuff, but I don't think a lot of people even realize cat behavior is a field. And I wonder, like, why do you think that is? Because there's more cats in homes than there are dogs in the United States, but I feel like we know less about them. Like, people know less about their behavior, and people don't even really kind of know where to access this. So why do you think that disconnect exists?
I think there's a big assumption that cats can't be trained, so why bother? Like, why bother trying to change their behavior? So I think that's one barrier. But I also think a lot of people assume that certain behaviors, like hiding, things that indicate stress or problems with the environment, are just normal cat behavior, right? We all know people who are like, oh yeah, he just hides all the time. He lives under the bed, lives on top of the fridge. And honestly, that's no way for a cat to live. But I think a lot of people just see that as how cats are. And so they don't realize that they could make things different and better for their cats. A lot of cats will choose to avoid a situation that bothers them. So if they have outdoor access and say the adopters or owners, you know, get a new dog and the cat hates the dog and maybe they didn't do a proper introduction and the cat doesn't feel safe around the dog, well, the cat just starts spending more time outside. And then you have a cat who gets labeled as aloof, and that starts to kind of disintegrate the human-cat bond. So I think a lot of it is kind of just a misunderstanding of how cats are, and also kind of their potential. Like, they can be amazing pets, and they can be very bonded to us. But I think people don't necessarily recognize that. Maybe they haven't had that kind of special heart kitty that has transformed their life and made them see what that relationship can be like. And I think the other thing that's really important to think about is just people take their dogs to public areas. They can be a danger if they're not, you know, safe, well-behaved, or whatever we perceive as well-behaved. And so there's a certain liability with having a dog that people recognize, we recognize as a society, whereas cats tend to, again, avoid situations that scare them. So it's not like there are attack cats left and right, or, you know, even if you look at the bite injury statistics, they're quite different from cat bites and dog bites. Not that cat bites can't be serious, but dog bites do tend to be like on the face and head, whereas cat bites tend to be from direct touching of the cat, usually someone trying to grab a cat, get bitten on the hand. I mean, that can send you to the hospital, no doubt. But, you know, dog bites can, and dog attacks in theory, can be quite dangerous. So I think there's also just less of a feeling of responsibility. Like, I need to have a well-behaved cat, and not even just thinking about the cat's happiness. Like, I want to have happy cats. You know, that's my goal as a cat person. I want my cats to be happy.
Yeah. So, you know, we've in our home, we've had, struggles with our cats in the past, and I'm not a behavior expert, especially with adult cats. And we've actually hired you in the past as a consultant to help us work through some of the issues we've had. And I just wanted to call that out to people that, you can hire a cat behavior consultant. If you have a concern, you don't just have to read it in a book or watch a YouTube video. You actually can hire a consultant. Do you have any advice for people who maybe didn't even know that? Like, where can people find a cat behavior consultant, and how do you know? Is there a way of knowing if somebody's like legit or not?
Yeah, there are a few different certifying organizations. So you can look for someone who has, attended a certain level of education, perhaps gone to what we call continuing education. So those are people who are staying up to date on current practices and ideas related to animal behavior and specifically related to cats. You can also see a veterinary behaviorist. Those are veterinarians who have specialized and done a residency in behavior, so they have an advanced level of training. The advantage of a consultant would be that they often offer remote visits or home visits, when it's safe to offer home visits. Whereas a lot of veterinary behaviorists want you to bring the cat to the veterinary office, which, you may have a cat whose behavior is very different at the vet than at home. But yeah, there's the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. They require a certain level of education experience to get certified. So, in the U.S. So there's a couple of international
Yeah,
organizations
so
as
that's a
well.
good place
And
to
I'd say,
start, probably.
yeah, start there. Yeah, and
Yeah,
also, it's always
yeah.
good to have a phone call, see if you gel with someone. It's like any
Hmm.
coaching or therapeutic relationship. You want it to be like someone you feel comfortable talking
Yeah.
to because you might share some very personal details.
Sure. Well, I've had to send you all sorts of silly videos and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it does feel it's like therapy for cat people of like, here's all of the things going on, but there's no replacement for that like individual consulting. So I appreciate everything that you do with that. And another thing I wanted to ask you about is, I think, like, on the line of what you were saying about people sort of like just thinking, oh, that cat's just aloof, or oh, that cat just hides. I think there's this like misimpression with people, and I hear it a lot, that cats are just like a low maintenance animal. Like, you don't have to do much for them. They sort of like plug and play, like get a cat, they just do their thing. And I think that's a really unfortunate thing, because I've even heard people say, well, I didn't really have time for a dog, so I got a cat because they're low maintenance. I wonder, like, what do you think of that? Like, from a scientific perspective, are cats a low maintenance animal?
I think if you don't want to have much of a relationship with your cat, you could meet their needs in a very minimal fashion, right? They don't need you to take them outside to go to the bathroom. So you scoop the litter box, hopefully, daily, but a lot of people don't. You can kind of just throw the food down and scoop the litter box once in a while, and your cat will survive. But their needs are actually quite complex. They have a lot of natural behaviors that need an outlet that an indoor home doesn't naturally provide unless you add those opportunities for them. So, hiding, hunting, place that they want to eliminate, a place they want to scratch. These are all things that cats do naturally, and they need to do them. You just need to help them do them in the places you want them to do them. But cats also need hiding places where they can feel safe. They need vertical space so they can see what's going on in the environment around them. And we
I
know
see
things like
behind
stress.
you.
Yeah, but I can never remember which way to turn my head.
There's,
Got some
yeah,
vertical
there's some
space.
vertical space there.
Yeah. So, these are things that can really add to your cat's environment and make them happier and allow them to express those natural behaviors. And some people consider providing a cat tree for their cats to be high maintenance. They don't want to look like they live with cats, or they don't want to have multiple litter boxes. They don't want to clean the box every day. And so, in that respect, I think meeting cats' true needs is not compatible with the idea that they're low maintenance. Um, so,
Sure.
I'm
Yeah, I
also,
think,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think we get back what we put into our relationship with them. So if you provide them with a stable environment with a sense of safety and things to do and exercise and things for them to explore, then you're really going to have a much deeper and satisfying relationship with them than if you don't do those things.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And, even something as a person who does a lot of like adoption coaching, we do a lot of adoptions. And when I'm talking to people, sometimes I'll ask, like, if you go out of town for the weekend, what's your plan? And, people will say, well, I just like put some food and water down. It, and having the experience that I have, it like horrifies me because I'm like, oh my gosh, they need so much more than that. Not just that they need somebody to play with them and give them affection and, add some interesting enrichment to their day, but even just their safety, like making sure that they're not stuck somewhere, they didn't get injured, they didn't swallow something strange. So just all these types of considerations. I think it's important that people understand, a cat is not a low maintenance dog. They are their own species that have their own needs. So, another way that I think that plays out is even in access to veterinary care, because a lot of people, they take their dog to the vet regularly, but they don't necessarily take their cat to the vet regularly. I wonder if you can speak to that. Like, why do you for me, I think a lot of people don't take their cat to the vet because they just like can't be bothered to. They don't want to put them in the carrier. Like, I know it sucks to put your cat in the carrier, and it's like your dog thinks it's fun to go out, and your cat doesn't think it's fun. But can you kind of talk about that a little bit, like you know, the lack of taking your cat to the vet that kind of happens, unfortunately, as a byproduct of thinking they're low maintenance?
Yeah, this is definitely a known thing. And when cat owners are surveyed, they definitely say the stress of getting their cat to the vet is a huge deterrent for them. So that's a big piece of it. I think cats also hide illness. So we talk a lot about them as a predator, but they're also a prey animal. And so their instinct is really to try to minimize any signs that, hey, I'm vulnerable. So they're just very cryptic at times. So people don't always recognize or know what the signs of pain or discomfort are, or what's a potential health problem. Now, going to the vet does not have to be a bad experience. You can train your cat to love their cat carrier by turning it into a safe space, leaving it out all the time, putting treats and bedding in it. There's been research that showed that just doing this very simple training to acclimate your cat to the carrier and being in the car reduced their stress at the vet. It made the vet visit shorter. The vet was able to do the exam more quickly. The cat's physiological signs of stress were reduced when they had that training. And so, again, it really speaks to the fact that cats are not low maintenance. And there are actually things we can do that benefit them and us that allow them to offer them a lifetime of quality medical care. And another big problem that I run into is people who have not gotten their cats used to having their mouth handled, not gotten used to maybe giving their cat medication in a low stress manner. So pairing medications with treats or using gel caps to hide the taste of yucky medication. Things that could really make a difference when your cat is 1, you're not thinking about this, but when your cat is 12 and they need 3 pills a day, a lot of people make the decision to not treat their cat for treatable conditions because they don't want to stress them out by giving them a pill. So I see a lot of cats that suffer a much
Wow.
shorter lifespan and a poor quality of life because they don't get the medication that they could be getting.
Yeah, this is kind of where you see like the intersection of like veterinary care and behavior definitely intersects, because there are also all of these things that people consider to be a behavioral problem that might actually be a medical problem. I see that a lot
Absolutely.
with people who say, my kitten's being so naughty, they're going outside of the litter box. And I'm like, well, hang on. Are they being naughty, or is something like, have you taken them to a vet? Is that something that you see a lot? People who think their cat has a behavioral problem, but actually they just really need to see a vet?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of behavior problems do manifest because of an underlying medical problem, whether it's urinary tract issue or diarrhea. Pain is huge. Like I said, really under recognized and under reported in cats. Could be things related to aging, cognitive decline, sensory decline. So yeah, all of those things need to be ruled out. And A lot of types of consultations, I won't work with someone unless the cat's had a clean bill of health from their veterinarian for that specific problem. So the veterinarian is always a good first step. If your cat's behavior has changed suddenly, or you have an ongoing behavior problem and you're not seeing any resolution. So yeah, I think the veterinarian should be your friend. Yeah.
So take your cat to the vet, people. It's an important thing to do. Well, the next thing I want to bring up is like how every time that I've seen you speak, and I've seen you speak several times, I always learn something new, and I always walk away going, how was I not doing this thing before? And one of the last times I saw you speak was in San Diego, and I think it was called like The Science of a Happy Cat, and you had a whole piece in there about puzzle feeders. And that was not something I was doing with my cats. And I walked out of there going, why am I not using puzzle feeders with my cats? And I immediately went online, bought like multiple different types of puzzle feeders. And ever since, my cats have had a much more enriching feeding routine. So I think I have some videos of my cat, Coco, using some of the puzzle feeders. There she is. And so with her, she does eat both dry and wet food, but with her dry food, which she loves, she accesses it all by having to like actually interact with something. And I wonder if you can talk about puzzle feeders briefly, like what are puzzle feeders? Why should people have them? What's the benefit to the cat?
Absolutely. So, the idea of what we call foraging enrichment or puzzle feeders is based in the idea that they allow animals to express normal species typical behaviors in captivity. So this idea really grew out of sanctuaries and zoos that were trying to make the lives of their captive animals a little more, for lack of a better term, like normal. We're talking about in an abnormal environment. I mean, we see a lot of problems with animals that live in captivity that are not provided with adequate environments, and you could make an argument that cats could fall into that category as well. So it's definitely they've been around for a while. I feel like the knowledge about them is increasing, and the kinds of food puzzles you can get for your cats has definitely like exploded. I think when I started working at the shelter, there was only one type of food puzzle, and it was a ball with a hole in it, and that was your only option if you wanted to buy something. So the idea is really allowing the cat to work for their food, keeping in mind they're a hunter. They do naturally work for their food. So the concept of activity related to the acquisition of food, or kind of the broad category of foraging behavior, which includes hunting, allows them to, use their brains, use their bodies. Anytime interacting with a food puzzle is time that they are not being naughty. So it can be a great way to kind of direct some of their energy and time budget to do things that are more constructive. It can also be really helpful for slowing down fast eaters. So if you've got a cat that just eats everything super fast.
That's Coco. That's
okay.
Coco.
Yeah. So it can be great for a lot of cats. So I'm a big fan. There's different types. So you've seen, I think the videos have featured stationary puzzles. So those are boards that the cat has to interact with their paws and get the food out. And then there are also mobile ones, which are like a ball with holes in it. You put the food in the ball.
You roll down the hallway.
Yeah, they roll it around. So that can be better with cats that are maybe not as agile with their paws. The stationary board requires some good paw action, and you can probably figure out if Coco is left or right pawed pretty easily.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Coco she's extremely food motivated. So I think she could probably like do an entire escape room with her paws to get to her preferred food. If that's what she had to do, she would do it. So she absolutely, it looks like she's right pawed or left. Maybe she's ambidextrous. I don't know.
She might be ambidextrous.
Yeah, she really, really loves the puzzle feeders. And I loved what you said about like, we have to, because I think maybe I have a sanctuary background also. And with wildlife, that when wildlife is captive, you have to be providing them with enrichment activities that mimic what would be, the things that they'd be doing in the wild. But I don't think people realize that like an indoor cat is captive. They can't just naturally stumble upon new things unless you give them new things to stumble upon.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if you can kind of talk about like, with my cats, that my cats are indoor cats, but I do some outdoor enrichment with them because I do think it's really important that every animal has an opportunity to explore something new, smell a new interesting thing, see a bug sometimes. All of that's like really exciting to them. My cats are harness trained, and I wonder if that's something that you recommend to people. Should they be harness training their cats? Can you harness train a cat if they're like a 15-year-old cat and they've never been outside? Like, how does that all work? Oh, there's Coco with her harness.
Oh, so cute. Yeah, my last cat, I lost one of my cats this year, but she didn't start going outside on a harness until she was 14. So she'd never been outside in the,
Wow.
13 years we'd had her. And so we harness trained her, and it was really, we moved to a place where we had a secure backyard, so I felt safe kind of introducing her to the outside in an enclosed environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was personally shocked by how much she loved it. She'd been indoors only her whole life, and I'd say I provided her with a lot of the things I would say are essential for a happy indoor cat. So I felt quite, proud of myself as a cat owner or cat person that I was providing the best. And once she had outside access, it was like her favorite thing. And it was always on a harness. It was always supervised. So she never wandered. And she honestly just wanted to roll in the grass and lay in the sun, chase butterflies. She wasn't like trying to really do anything wild, but it was definitely enriched her life in a way that I had not anticipated, as far as its kind of unique effect on her happiness. So I'm an advocate of safe outdoor access for cats, whether it's a catio or a fenced-in yard that's cat-proofed, or or a harness. And cats of all ages can learn to acclimate to a harness. And I think once they figure out that the harness means they get to go outside, they are like, cool, put this thing on me. So yeah, I think it's great.
There's Coco at her birthday party.
Oh God,
this is
that's adorable.
Coco. She turned 10 last year, and she loves being on her harness, and I threw her a big 10th birthday bash, and it was a picnic party because and this goes to show all cats have different behavior, because my cat Eloise would never, ever want to have a party. She's not a party girl, but Coco loves people. So her dream day would be a bunch of people come over to hang out with her, and she's outside with them. So I did picnic blankets, and she had a harness and got to go around and say hi to everyone and get treats. And Coco is a well-enriched girl, at least with outside stuff. She just loves it. And I know I have a video too of her just what she wants to do when she goes outside is see any people, explore, and then she wants to eat grass. She just wants to eat grass.
She's living the dream, though.
Later. She finds the best patch of grass, and then you'll see in this video she's just munch, 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 munch. That's her MO.
That's great. And people
Is
can
that
provide
something you've experienced?
Yeah, people can provide grass for their indoor kitties too. But yeah, I think that they honestly love the textures and the smells and just the feeling of dirt that's been sitting in the sun all morning. The warmth even just and I thought about this because, like I said, when she went outside, it was so obviously different to her than just sitting by a window, which we could have the windows wide open and she'd be getting the same fresh air. But I feel like the being outside really kind of changed it. So I'm a fan. She looks very happy. And it's not for every cat. Some cats just are perfectly happy not going outside at all. And so it's always worth a try, but you don't want to force it. So, it can take your kitty a few attempts to feel comfortable, because it's a big open space going outside. And again, as prey animals, cats can be a little nervous about open space above them, because that means a hawk could just, but I think most cats with a few short visits outside, especially if they're already acclimated to the harness, are going to be like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you. So the next thing I want to move to is something that I loved reading about in Total Cat Mojo, and something that I think this is just not common knowledge, which is why cats scratch stuff. because they scratch stuff outside, they scratch stuff inside, they scratch your furniture, they scratch a scratch post, they scratch a tree. Cats love to scratch stuff. And I think that a big issue with people misinterpreting cat behavior is there's all these behaviors cats do that are natural that people then interpret as my cat hates me, like my cat is punishing me right now. And to me, having the context and knowing the why behind each behavior actually makes even things that I don't love much more tolerable and even sweet. So like when I learned that, cats scratch stuff because they're trying to like create this like family scent with you and like bond. Now when my cats scratch stuff, I'm like, oh, you're trying to like bond and like make this like scent with me. That's so sweet. Please don't do that on my couch. Can you talk about like why cats scratch? Like how should we be interpreting that? And then we can talk a little about like how to make them not scratch our furniture.
Sure. And your cats are wondering, like, why won't mom scratch the couch? Like, why isn't she doing her part to contribute to the house scent? So yeah, there's lots of reasons that cats scratch, and it's not just to shred your furniture. Really, probably one of the most like satisfying parts of scratching for cats is the ability to stretch their back muscles. Like they can really get a good pull. You'll see them, often scratch after a nap. So that's like a way to get limber and loosen up. It helps them condition their nails. But it also does allow them to mark their territory. So when they scratch, they're leaving a visual cue by the scratch marks, but also a scent cue because they have scent glands on their paws. So there's pheromones that they're releasing that basically leave a message like, this is my house, this is my stuff. They might share it with other cats, but they are clearly like claiming their space and saying, I live here. And you're right, when they're marking or scratching things that we sit on a lot or that are near us a lot, they are helping to create a group scent. We know that cats do that with other cats. So the family scent is very important to cats. We see this in feral colonies, but we also see it in households where cats will scratch the same objects. They urinate in the same litter boxes. These are all ways that they basically blend their scents to create a unique combination that identifies who lives here and who doesn't. Are you part of this group scent or not? And so if you're part of that group scent, yeah, you should feel a little bit honored. We also know that it's a displacement behavior. So you might see if your cat falls off their cat tree, or they just get in a little tiff, or, there was a loud noise, they might go to the scratching post and kind of really go to town on it. And so that's like kind of an outlet for stress. And so we call that a displacement behavior, where they're doing a behavior, but not necessarily for its main purposes, but it gives them a little bit of release in that moment. So we consider it a stress outlet as well. And so, the keys to stopping your cats from scratching the furniture or minimizing the damage, I mean, there's lots of things you can do. And I think the most important one is to provide them with things to scratch that they like. And I think that's where people fail. Like they just say, no, don't scratch the couch, but they don't provide the cat with a better alternative. So you really need to know.
I have this photo here. This is what we do in our house. So we have like a corner protector on our couch, which is just like a gentle way of saying maybe not here. And then I put a scratch post right next to it. So it's like, listen, I want to do the family scent thing with you. I know I sit on this couch a lot. We watch a lot of Netflix on that couch. You're part of the family too, but why don't you do it on this sturdy, wonderful scratch post and not on this surface that we've now made slippery and a little bit unpleasant for you to scratch? So, I mean, is that strategy works really well for us? Is that kind of along the lines of something you would recommend?
Absolutely. And the reason that I like the corner cover is, one, you've put the scratching post near the problem area. So you're not saying, no, you can't do this behavior that's important to you. Just do it here instead of here. But the corner also sends a message to your cat that has nothing to do with you. So when people get caught in this vicious cycle of punishing their cat, so squirt bottles, yelling, things that are worse that I don't want to talk about, all of those things deteriorate your relationship with your cat, and the cat will just do the behavior when you're not there. So if they see like, oh, owner's coming with the squirt bottle, ears go down, run away. We don't want to deteriorate your relationship with your cat. So why not have the environment tell your cat, like, hey, there's a better option. The couch, not so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Your scratching post is very conveniently located right next to the couch. So use that instead. The other danger is that a lot of
Right.
people accidentally give their cat attention for the behaviors they don't like. So something that might seem like he should know I'm mad, I'm yelling at him. If your cat is bored, he might be scratching the edge of your couch and staring at you like, what are you going to do about it? You know, and so they're looking for a reaction from you if they're bored. And so a lot of people get stuck in the cycle of giving their cat attention for the behaviors they don't want them to do instead of praising them for the behaviors they want them to do, which is why also when your cat uses a scratching post, it's great to use a happy voice like, good boy, and give them treats and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that they're doing the thing you want them to do. Give them lots of praise, treats, and attention,
Mm-hmm.
and they will do it more.
Mm-hmm.
But I like
Mm-hmm.
your approach.
Yeah,
Looks good.
yeah,
I
that's
love that
great
scratching
advice.
post.
Yeah. Ah, thank you. You know what? And I like having a couch that's not shredded because I've had cats for more than 10 years now. All my furniture has always been shredded, but I got this couch after reading Total Cat Mojo, and I knew
Excellent.
what to do. So I feel like the more you learn, then I was like, I think I'm finally ready for like a nice adult couch now that I understand what's going on here. So I want to switch gears and talk about another thing that I learned from Total Cat Mojo. I love all the different like sort of archetypes of cats, and every single one I read, I was like, wait, that's Coco. Wait, that's Eloise. That's Haroon. And you talk in Total Cat Mojo about the wallflower cat, and I was like, that is Eloise. I will say, Eloise, even since I've talked to you, she's coming a long way. I'm super super
Oh,
proud
good.
of her. But like, she's 8 years old. In my relationship with her, she has mostly been this wallflower cat. It's like this shy cat where the doorbell rings, Coco runs to the door like a dog. She's like, ooh, who's here? Eloise hides. You know, she's like, I don't want new friends. I don't want to see your new foster kittens. Like, she hides. And so for people who have a shy cat like Eloise, you know, she like hides behind the curtain and like sits there and is like, that's her little
Mm,
safe, there she is,
she's
her
so
little
cute.
safe space. um you know, she feels safest when she's kind of like hidden away and stuff, and I do a lot to try to bring her out of her shell, and she is coming out of her shell for a lot of different reasons. um but what would your advice be for people who have a cat like this? Like, should we be leaning into and respecting what seems like their natural behaviors, or should we be like, come on, like, let's try something new, let's be a little bit bold and daring? Like, I wonder, like, where is that line between acceptance and sort of pushing to have like behavior modification?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer is really a little bit of both. And if we think about kind of what shapes personality and what is personality, right? Like why is your cat Eloise like always more timid than your other two? Or so personality is really just like a way of being that's relatively consistent across different contexts. So all of
Mm,
us have certain ways of being like, you're not going to get a lot of surprises when you talk to someone well, but they might be more outgoing in one situation, maybe people they're comfortable with, than they are in another situation. And certainly, if you've gone from maybe being a bit of an introvert to like public speaking or educating, like you end up putting yourself out there maybe more than you thought was possible. So it's not like we don't shift
sure.
as we age or that the environment can't change our behavior. But I do think, we know, okay, there's genes. So some of cat personality is based in genetics. So some cats are just naturally going to be bolder, kind of just coming right out of the womb. Like you are destined to have a little more boldness in you naturally compared to your sister. um,
Sure.
and then there's socialization. So we know that kittens that get handled a lot between 2 to 9 weeks of age are getting exposed to things at a time where they're very receptive to new experiences. So that is going to also help them be bolder as they get older, maybe more comfortable with human
Mm,
attention. And then there's the environment. So is the environment chaotic? Is it quiet? Is there, an animal that they don't get along with? Is there a baby? Is there a train that runs outside. So all of these things can kind of contribute to how our cats respond and how they behave and how we think of them as being kind of fitting in a category, right? So a wallflower is a nice way of saying your cat's a little bit shy. When we look at animal behavior and personality, we kind of tend to think of it in terms of, are they bold or shy? Are they aggressive or more gentle? Are they active or more mellow? Those are kind of three of the major axes of animal personality. I mean, there's some variation depending on which theory you're thinking about, but those also correlate very nicely with the things that we put in Total Cat Mojo, as far as the mojito cat and the wallflower and the Napoleon. So as far as your question, like, do we embrace her wallflowerness, or do we try to encourage her to be a little more on the mojito side of things? So I think we have to accommodate these cats to a certain extent, making sure that they feel safe. And so an example of that would be making sure they have hiding spaces that they feel are comfortable. But we don't want that hiding space to be kind of what I referred to earlier, like living under the bed or on top of the fridge. Those are warning signs. Like, you want your cat to be part of the family, be comfortable walking around in the house. So that means putting hiding spaces in your area. So in the living room, maybe you have tunnels or a cat tree with a cubby. Maybe you have multiple safe spaces so that your cat can get to one room from another if they need to kind of go from one safe space to the next. So you're kind of creating this little passageway where they can always see where their next opportunity for safety is. And certainly if there's things in the environment that are stressing your kitty out, like conflicts with other animals, then you have to work on that as well. Did you want to add something?
Sure. Okay. I just was thinking, this is a good, because I've had both Coco and Eloise since they were kittens. And the thing is, like, Eloise is 8, Coco's 11. And when I think back to myself 8 and 11 years ago when they were kittens, I didn't know what I know now. And I think even year to year, month to month, like, the information is changing, which is why it is important to keep up on, new research. It's why I talk to you a lot, also just because I like you and you're my friend. But I learn so much when I talk to you. And I was thinking, like, it would be great to kind of talk about kitten socialization. And when you're working with young kittens, which I know that you are studying a lot, the effects of sort of early kittenhood experiences later in life. The first question I have for you on that is about behavior modification with kittens. I have some videos that I've done. One of them is an older video from, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, of socializing feral kittens. And you can see this guy is miserable. And, when I used to get, like, feral kittens many years ago, I would kind of, like, smother them, right? I would, like, there's his little hiding space, but I'm, like, putting my hand in his hiding space and kind of, like, forcing him to interact with me. I would do a lot of, like, burritos and, like, bouncing them and sitting, like that, like, bouncing them in your lap, like, really sort of like forced socializing. And that was a way that I was able to get these kittens to, to start purring and interacting with me. And that did work. But I will say, over the years, I've sort of shifted away from, like, that forced interaction with kittens. And now I kind of do this more, like, gradual desensitization, like, using a lot of, like, food and, like, slowly moving the mile marker a little bit, and like, touching them on their sides, and just, like, gradual. So I wonder, like, when you watch these videos and when you hear of these different ways, because there's a lot of different theories on, like, how you should socialize a kitten, especially a unsocial feral kitten. What does the science say about that? Like, is there research about socializing feral kittens, and should we be doing kind of the one way or the other? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so I don't know. There's definitely been some studies of socializing kittens, but not specifically looking at what we'd consider a feral or under-socialized kitten and whether one technique is better than the other. Certainly when I started working with those kittens in the shelter, 20 years ago or so, we did do a lot of forced handling. We did burritos, and it works, right? To the extent that you get a result. You get a kitten who does respond to touch. They are able to be adopted. What we don't really know is whether or not that instills some form of learned helplessness, because they're being forced to interact with you. And so if you think of it from the perspective of other animals where there has been research, including humans, like what happens when you expose an animal to something that they're very afraid of. We call that technique flooding. And that is where you're basically overwhelming the animal with the thing they're afraid of and not allowing them to respond in a way that allows them to feel safe, right? So that might be escape or fight. But usually if you wrap a kitten up in a towel, they can't move, they can't protect themselves, they can't escape. So that would be like if you have a fear of spiders and I strapped you down onto a table and just poured tarantulas all over you, right? At what point do you decide you enjoy that experience? I'm not going to do that. So I think that a lot of people still perpetuate that technique because, again, you end up with a result, but we don't know if this leads to like increased stress or perhaps fear of being handled down the road. We know, like I said, from phobia treatment that that's not the most effective way, and that it might be faster to some people's eyes to do it that way, but we do now recommend not using forced handling techniques, but instead using more gradual exposure paired with positive experiences. So what we call counter conditioning, desensitization. So counter conditioning is changing an animal's emotional response from negative to positive by pairing something scary with something that they like food. And then the desensitization is kind of like turning up the volume knob. You start at a very low level of scariness, so you're barely touching them. And then as they get more comfortable, you're handling them more in new areas and exposing the amount of time you handle them. We also use clicker training to help scared cats, and this can work with kittens and adults, where you're actively rewarding certain behaviors that you want them to repeat. So this is just a positive reinforcement method of training where you're saying, these are the behaviors I like, and I will reward you for them. And you ignore the behaviors that you don't like. And then you also are just respecting their signals of fear. And again, if they're hissing and growling, you're not taking the right approach. I mean, the good news is the younger the kitten, the quicker they turn around. And so either technique, you'll get results very quickly. With the older kittens, it's always going to be a little bit more of a project, as you probably have experienced. So not all of them are going to kind of turn around into a super confident cat, but that doesn't mean they can't be a good companion animal for someone. So I think it's really, they just need kind of someone who's going to be very patient with them and also understand that giving the cat a sense of control and the ability to make a choice and also feel like they could escape if they wanted to is going to be much more effective than cornering them, smothering them, wrapping them up and forcing them to be exposed to you. And unfortunately, people really try that a lot with shy cats. I've gone to clients' homes, their cat is hiding under the bed, and they're like, oh, I'll go get him. I'll go pull him out from under the bed. And I'm like, no. Like, that's not going to make your cat like me. That's only going to make him more afraid of strangers. And so people's instinct is like, oh, I'll just show him that this person is safe by ripping him out of his hiding spot and putting him on the thing he's afraid of lap. And again, if you just think about the spiders, you'll see why that idea is not so good.
I'd rather not think about the spiders, I'll be honest. Let's zoom in on the kitten cam real fast and see what's going on down there. It looks like a whole lot of sleeping. Oh my gosh, so many cute little bellies. I sure hope they wake up and give us some fun playtime action. So speaking of kittens, I wanted to ask you if you can kind of explain some of the research you're doing around the kind of early experiences of being an orphan versus having a mother as a kitten. I know that you are doing a study on that, so I'm wondering if you can kind of explain what you're looking for in that study. How are you doing that study? What are you finding? What are you hoping to find?
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to say is just the goals of my research are not to try to prove that orphaned kittens have problems or anything like that. It really is to try to understand the effects of being orphaned, and if they do have any differences from mother-reared kittens. Well, some of those differences might be positive. I mean, that's always a possibility. But also just like, are there any things we should be doing to help them thrive? We know that so many orphans become amazing pets. So I'm not really worried about these kittens having like being defective. I think they get a lot of
My babies
great.
are the best babies, and they're,
Absolutely.
all of the little babies you see down there are orphans. But I think it's so great that you're doing this research.
I like to refer to your kittens as artisan kittens because you do so much like
Oh,
small batch. Um,
thank you.
but so the question was really stemming from a bigger question about early life experience, and some of it was influenced by the fact that we know that adverse experiences in humans during childhood can have long-term effects for health. So there was this big
Sure.
study of humans called the ACEs study. It's adverse childhood experiences. And what they found was that people who had been exposed to more stressful events early in life were more likely to have health problems, issues with job satisfaction, relationship satisfaction, those sort of things. So this was really a potential to use a naturally occurring model to better understand the effects of maternal care and also the absence of maternal care. And also, certainly like it was very, I think the timing was kind of this tidal wave where you were really becoming very prominent in the rescue world, and this issue was becoming prominent as far as like how many of these kittens were being euthanized. And I feel like you've done so much to change that situation. Now so many more rescues are focused on rescuing these kittens. Yeah, I think it's great. And as you know, I had a lot of questions for you when I was starting out, but yeah, so the questions have really been like, what is happening to these kittens? What can we do to better provide for them? And what are the effects of early maternal separation? So we've been looking for ways to easily measure things that would be of concern. So we did one study where we looked at part of their DNA. So we compared the DNA of part of the DNA. So it's this part of DNA called telomeres, and these are like caps on the ends of your DNA that get shorter as you age, and they get shorter with stress. And so we were interested in whether or not orphans had shorter telomeres than mother-reared kittens, and they did not. So that was a great finding. And that could be because the care that kittens receive when they're being fostered is actually quite good. They don't have to compete for a nipple. They get as much food as they want, which doesn't happen when they're mother reared. They might be, stuck with maybe the less productive nipple. And so that's why you'll often have like serious
little babies.
I know. So, the orphans, as you know, they get those nice chunky bellies. There's no limitation to how much formula they get. So there might be some benefits of being hand reared by humans. So one study we did last summer, I did this with a veterinary student, was looking at differences in stress responses of orphans and mother-reared kittens during what we call a nest separation. So that's being isolated from your litter mates, or if you have a mom, from your mom and your litter mates, and looking at two measures of stress that had been validated in a previous study of mother-reared kittens. And this was activity, so how much you're moving around, which if you're an orphan and you get separated from your nest, increasing your activity would increase the chance that you would just happen to, fall back into it, right? So by moving around more, you're engaging in search behavior, you're increasing the odds you'll get back to your home. And then the other measure we looked at was vocalization. And many, many mammals engage in distress cries if mom's gone. And so that gets mom, where's my baby? So we know that mother cats will go to a kitten who's crying, retrieve them and bring them back to the nest. So the distress cry is has a clear advantage to kittens because that allows the caretaker to come back for them. Activity is, maybe less clear as to its function, but we think at this age it would be to allow them to get back to their nest. So we just wanted to know, are orphans doing more or less of these behaviors than mother-reared kittens during a separation? So that was the study we did.
So I know that we have a video of some of your research that we can show here, so let's watch that.
Cool. Yeah, so we placed the kittens in a playpen in a separate room. Yep.
And this one has a mom.
Yes. And this is an orphan.
Wow. Really different.
Yeah.
Poor baby. I want to just scoop her up.
Oh my God. When we were doing the study, so just to be clear, So the kittens were only in the playpen for 2 minutes, but when it was happening, it was like the
Yeah.
longest 2 minutes in the world because some of the kittens were just crying so much. And I'm like, it's just 2 minutes. But,
Oh,
I think one kitten let out 100 cries in 2 minutes. So it was
wow.
a lot. Yeah. And so,
So what did
those are
you find?
yeah. So what we found was that the orphans, so we tested the kittens at 1 week of age and then also at 3 weeks of age. And what we found was that the orphans were more vocal and more active at both periods compared to the mother reared kittens, which was actually, we had
Hmm.
anticipated that in the first week of life, they would probably be more vocal and active because the maternal separation was so recent that they might be in a heightened state of stress. We were surprised that that was maintained because there's actually been research in other animals that has shown that being reared by humans actually provides some benefits as far as exploring a new environment or being isolated, and that those animals are actually um, more relaxed and comfortable. So we thought that maybe the mother reared kittens would be more, screamy and active at 3 weeks of age, but that's not what we found. So we found the
Hmm.
orphans that increase in activity and vocalization was sustained. Probably in an
Hmm.
ideal world, we would be able to validate this with some other measures of stress, but it's very tricky to get like blood samples from kittens without causing stress. Maybe we could do like
Sure.
looking for stress hormones in urine or something like that. So we're tentatively concluding that the orphans do have slightly higher stress responses at 1 and 3 weeks of age. So we don't know if that's sustained into
Sure.
adulthood
Yeah.
or what.
That's really, really interesting that, it seems like there are maybe some behavioral differences even in a 1 week old kitten based on those early experiences. And another thing that I know that you've studied that we talk about a lot, that I'm excited to talk about now because it's like I always am like, oh yeah, did you know that I'm friends with the world's leading expert on kittens sucking on each other? What a thing to be an expert about. So what I want to move to now, for anybody who's not familiar with this issue, is kittens sucking on one another, because this is an orphan kitten thing. I don't. Maybe it is. Maybe it occurs not with orphans. I don't know. You can tell me. But um, orphaned kittens, some percentage of them will suckle on their siblings, and a lot of the times the target is like genitals, which can result in all sorts of horrible things. I mean, I've seen everything from kittens who've needed surgery because they were a victim of sucking. I've personally had kittens come to me who had bladder infections, who were victims of sucking. So I know this is a really big issue, and it's something a lot of people kind of have questions about. Why are they doing that? What should we do when they're doing that? I have actually the kittens at the bottom of the screen right now, those little guys. I have a video of them when they were babies because they were suckers. Every kitten here at some point was being a sucker, and I want to show you the video of this because they look so cute here. But look at what they were doing as babies, sucking on each other. And I see all sorts of things that people, and this is how you can tell too, because
Yep.
they're always wet, and
Yep.
and then their face will get like dirty. You can tell who's got the dirty face, and that's the sucker, and then who's got the wet butt, and that's the victim. And
Oh
they're like,
yes.
see, guilty,
Yep.
guilty, guilty, guilty. So talk to me about this behavior. You've done a lot of research on this. What? Oh, look at him. He's like,
Oh
yum, yum, yum. Poor angels. And it's like, I feed them a ton. So, like, it's not like they're going hungry. So
no.
why do they do this? What have you learned? What did your study look at? What have you learned? Tell me everything.
Yeah. So when I started working with orphan kittens, this was not what I thought I was going to end up studying. But we actually we
You
had
don't
this
say.
amazing yeah we had this amazing undergraduate who worked at the nursery at San Diego Humane Society. So she would do that all summer. And when we were starting, she approached us about helping us with research, and she started talking about this behavior, and we were like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh no, they do. They all do. It's super common." And we were like, "Okay, well, we'll see." And then we were doing an unrelated study, and about 40% of the kittens in our study, and there's a litter of 3 females right there, 40% of the kittens in our study were either suckers, victims, or both. And we were like, wow, like that's almost half of the kittens being affected by this behavior. So that's not insignificant. So then it was like, okay, we need to understand this better. It turns out it's a really common behavior, and it's been well studied in agricultural species. So unfortunately, piglets and calves are early weaned, and they exhibit a lot of flank sucking, tail biting, belly nosing, and these are all behaviors that are due to the stressors of being separated from their mother too young. We also know that mammals engage in a lot of non-nutritive sucking. So that is time that is spent with mom where they're nursing, but they're not getting any milk. So it's not just a milk fest every time they're nursing. So there's other functions of being with mom and nursing, and probably a lot of those are providing comfort, probably allowing for like oxytocin release or other hormones that lead to good feelings and bonding, and warmth and comfort. So there are other functions to nursing besides food. And once you recognize that, it kind of makes sense why these kittens are doing this more relentlessly. And I mean, as you've seen, I mean, once they start, it can be very, very difficult to stop. It's like they're obsessed.
Sure, yeah. And people have all of these like horrible, I want to know your opinion. I know I have a photo of a couple of different things people have done to try to like resolve this issue. And I'm not personally a fan of especially the bags on the head. I can almost not even look at this photo. It
upsets
and
me.
it's like, bless your heart, because I appreciate that people are trying, but like the thing in the middle actually is the most common thing I see people go, put a sock on them, like, just wrap them up in something. But for me, this is a problem because this is a period in their life where they're learning. Their muscles are developing, their bones are developing, they're learning how to go to the bathroom on their own. They're learning how to walk. They're like gaining mobility. And when we restrict them, that's not a good thing. So can you talk about like what's going on in all these photos? How do people respond to this issue? And then what would you recommend?
Yeah. So one of the things we did was we did a big survey of foster caretakers of both mother-reared kittens and orphans, and included litters that had sucking and litters that did not have sucking. And the purpose was really to try to find out like what are some of the risk factors, both like environmental within the kitten, is this really an orphan thing? It turns out, yes, it is. And also to kind of hear from people what they were doing to manage it, what kind of medical issues they were seeing. And so we got responses from over 400 foster caretakers who filled out very detailed information about each kitten in their litter. So the weight of each kitten, the sex of each kitten, if they were a sucker, if they were a victim, or both. And so it was great to get that level of detail. And I would say the results to anyone who works in rescue, they would probably say, well, duh. But we did, see that male kittens are definitely more likely to be a victim, probably because the penis is very similar in structure to nipples. It's just the right shape and it's in the right location, more or less. But male and female kittens are equally likely to be suckers. So it's not like the sucking behavior is not specific to one sex or the other. And there are kittens in every litter that seem, not every litter, but in some litters that seem to escape the sucking trap. So some kittens just are not involved in it. Whereas in other litters, it's like a daisy chain.
Yeah, that's what I see too. That's what I see too is like, there are certain kittens I have who are the victim, certain who are the sucker. Some of them are the victim and the sucker. And then some of them are just like, I don't know what y'all are doing, but I am not involved in it. And I have a photo I want to share of what I did with my babies. This is like, I
nice.
separate my babies out. But what I would say about this photo, as opposed to kind of the three-way or the four-way cardboard separation that I saw is, when you're separating them out in a really small space, I don't know that you can give like proper, even a neonate needs some form of enrichment. Like they need a cuddle companion, a comfort source, like a little soft bed or a little teddy bear or, things like that. When you're separating out kittens, my perspective, and you tell me if I'm right, my perspective is you don't want to just separate out a kitten and put them in like a little cardboard separated area with no stimulus whatsoever. But rather you want them to have, you know, some stuff. So what I did here, these pens I really like because, you know, depending on who's sucking and who's not sucking, you can like divide them out and be like, all right, you're sucking, you're going in the isolation chamber, but I'll give you a teddy bear and a litter box. And then, you know, you can kind of, you know, move them around as needed. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I will say one of the things that actually surprised me from our study was that there was no effect of like feeding frequency. There was no effect of whether they were provided with a heating source or stuffed animals, which makes me think that there's kind of gets back to the idea of genetics and that there might be something like genetic about their stress responses that leads some kittens to maybe engage in more motor search behavior. So they're more inclined to look for mom than other kittens who might be like, well, you know, I'm just, you know, this seems cool. I'm just going to roll over and go with it, you know, whereas other kittens are like, where's mom? Where's mom? Where's mom?
This seems cool.
Yeah. So yeah. And I agree with, you know, right now, I think I don't like any of the options. I really don't like separating, you know, kittens who are already suffering from a maternal deprivation and now they're in isolation. Yeah. So it's really a trade-off. And I would say if people can give them any supervised time where they can cuddle, that's, you know, where they don't just go to sucking. But, you know, some people find it's just like they just immediately go for it. So it is really tricky.
Yeah.
We're currently
that's
doing
what I would do with mine is like do like visiting hours, like, you know, okay, like while I'm in there and I'm feeding everyone, you can all be together and I'm just like constantly taking them away. Like, I'm feeding you, like I just fed you, why are you still suckling? And I think that goes to the like non-nutritive, just like, I don't know, I'm just sucking because it feels good. I don't know, you know, yeah. But I do like to like still have them have that companionship because it's hard, you know, and it's a hard habit for them to break. I don't know that a lot of people are successful in breaking that until they are a little older. Obviously now, when you look at them on the cam, like no one's sucking anyone anymore because they're all weaned. And, you know, I think it is something that they can and do typically grow out of. But what a crisis for when you're in the moment. It's not pleasant.
It's very stressful. Yeah, it's really stressful. And I would love to, in the future, track some of these kittens into adulthood and find out, because, you know, we do see oral behaviors in adult cats, whether it's like nursing on your shirt or chewing on non-food items. And I'm always like, was this cat early weaned? We just don't know. But you know, we're currently doing a study to look at an intervention to see if providing them with basically a fake mom with nipples could give them an outlet for that non-nutritive sucking. I'll say so far, like all of the kittens in the study are still sucking, so it's not turning out to be the, like
they're like magical once a solution. Sucker, always a sucker.
Well, we're giving, so,
I know, like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing that we've talked about in the past that I know is there's all these factors that I wish you could study that it's like, okay, it's just not like feasible to do. But like one idea that I have as a not scientist, and I can just say my ideas that are founded in nothing but experience, and experience is definitely something, but like an experience I've had that I would be curious if it was possible to do the research is I think potentially that the longer a kitten is separated from mom before being rescued. So let's say, you know, a kitten really is separated from their mom. No one finds them for 10 hours. Then they're in a car, the person can't figure out where to get formula, they're with this person for 3 hours before they get any, you know, all of a sudden it's been more than half a day, they've had no food. I would guess, non-scientifically, that some of those kittens, you know, the more desperate they become, maybe they're searching, and then it's like a habit you can't break, you know, because I think most of the kittens who come to me who are suckers also seem to be the ones who are a little more emaciated, a little sicker. Maybe we know that they weren't with mom for a long time, as opposed to these like robust, healthy kittens where you're like, come on, that's not an orphan. Like they were just with their mom, clearly. But again, this is not scientific. This is why I love talking to you about stuff, because I have all these ideas, but I mean, the data I have is experience, you know, and it's not it's not perfect. So
We
what,
call
I don't know
that
if you have any thoughts
anecdata.
on that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
call that
I'm
anecdata.
filled with
So it's
that.
like, yeah. No, I think that's a really good question. And certainly having a standardized tool that could allow us to assess the kitten on intake and help maybe increase the likelihood that we are making a correct identification of how long that kitten has likely been separated from mom would be helpful. I mean, I've definitely known, we had some kittens in our study a couple of years ago, and they were preemies. They had been with the mom. The shelter separated them from the mom because the mom was feral, and they didn't want to keep her with her babies. But one of those kittens was 68 grams. And he had been with mom. None of those kittens ended up sucking.
Tiny.
So yeah, but so there are situations where you might
Huh.
have that kind of data. So you could compare kittens who were still with mom with kittens who maybe you knew when they were separated. It would probably take a lot of time, but
Right.
again, if you could come up with a good proxy for that knowledge by saying, okay, this kitten, I mean, would you know if you stimulated them to go to the bathroom and they didn't go to, like nothing came out? Could you gauge how recently they had eaten or?
Yeah, or even like the weights of kittens, like, or not the
Yeah,
weights, but like the how
like the
close they
fat
are to their
composition.
target weight. If they're,
Mm,
yeah, if they're more emaciated, if they're not at the target weight that they should be, then you might be able to draw a conclusion there about like maybe they haven't been fed in a while. I don't know. These are just ideas, but I want to move on to my next and kind of last topic for you, which is the thing that I've always said. If I was a cat behavior scientist, which I'm not, but if I was, I think my big passion would be weaning, because I see a lot of issues with weaning, and even like in the ways that I was taught to wean kittens versus the ways that I wean kittens now with all the experience that I have. I think that there's so much room to grow in our knowledge of what works best for kittens who are weaning. And I know there's not a lot of data out there about weaning kittens. I know I have very strong opinions and anecdata about what I think is the best way to wean kittens, which I'll just, by the way, mention very quickly. I really strongly feel people should start weaning around 5 weeks. I just have a better experience with that personally. If people want to learn about that, I have a whole webinar, kittenlady.org/webinar, about kittens and weaning. So you can watch that, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm just curious if you can talk about the weaning research that's happening right now. I know that you're doing a study, I think, and that people can participate in it. So if people are fostering kittens who are weaning or about to be weaning, how can they participate in what you're doing, and what are you doing?
yeah, so I have I saw you talk about weaning and really, I think you brought up the
Very
term kitten led
passionately.
weaning. Kitten led weaning.
Yes.
And that really spoke to me. Like, again, I'm very much a fan of giving cats control and choices. And I also heard from a lot of foster caretakers that they were frustrated that the kitten wouldn't take the bottle, and they were almost mad, and it kind of broke my heart. So
Oh no.
it's so sad. They get frustrated. I mean, it's and I think it's because they feel like there's a marker at which if it's 5 weeks and the kitten's not eating food, there's something wrong. I'm doing something wrong, and they get frustrated. And so when I saw you talk about kitten led weaning, I was like, oh, this is super interesting. And then I was also interested in the idea of weaning not just as a switch from solid food. So there's a lot that goes on, right? The body's changing. They're switching from liquid to solid. So the diet's changing. And for kittens who are with their moms, their relationship with the mother is changing, because often the mother is starting to spend more time away from the kitten. She's making decisions that, yeah, like, I don't want you hanging out with me. She'll kind of push them away or go to elevated
Hey, you
spaces.
know
So
what? That happens also with humans who are, I'm
yeah,
basically a cat, no big deal. But even my relationship with my babies changes once they're weaning,
right,
because if they're on a bottle, I'm with them in the middle of the night. I'm with them all the time.
right,
Every couple hours, I'm with them. And
yeah,
then once they're weaned, I might get to feel like, whew, I get a little break.
and sleep.
But it does change your relationship with them, but I'm certainly, if they have a mom cat, then, you see big changes in their relationship.
Yeah. So we're interested in what's going on with kittens at that time and kind of just trying to observe what behaviors are being noticed by foster caretakers in both mother reared kittens and orphans. And you actually helped a lot with the list of behaviors because I contacted you for feedback on all the behaviors we were asking about. So thank you for that. And so basically, we have a survey based project that we're doing right now, a vet student, that's her summer project. And if you want to participate, yep, there it is. It's bit.ly. So bit.ly link is kitten weaning. So you can go there and sign up for the kitten weaning study. You do have to fill out a survey every day. So we're going to ask you questions about the kitten's behavior, a few questions about their personality, things that you're observing as far as their feeding. And we would like to enroll people before the kitten starts weaning. So we're kind of going through the whole weaning process. And it's cool because even in the data that we've gotten so far, you can see the time trajectory of different behaviors like grabbing at the bottle or when they start eating wet food versus formula. So it's really cool to see. We kind of lined up all the data based on the kitten's days of age and then the frequency of the behavior. So you can see which behaviors are very common at what age and which behaviors are not common. And so we're still collecting data. We'd love people to participate. We'll probably be collecting data through the end of this kitten season. So there's plenty of time still.
Yeah, I want people to participate because I want this data because I strongly feel like, there are certain methods that do work a little bit better for weaning kittens. And the thing that like just always breaks my heart about kittens and weaning is, when we have such a strict idea of like when and how they're supposed to wean. And I think that that's gotta be traumatic to some of these kittens when we're like forcing something upon them. And that's why I always talk about like kitten led weaning because if you can make it such like a pleasant thing. I know I have some video of my kittens, my current kittens, eating from their dishes. There they are. And these guys were bottle babies. These are the same kittens on the kitten cam. These guys were bottle babies. I got them when they were like 0 days old. And the last thing that I want to do is rush them into this because, I don't want them to go through weight loss and emotional trauma and all of the things that can happen when a kitten is weaning. So I'm just so grateful that you guys are doing this work so that we can help people learn more about weaning. And I am grateful that you reached out to me about it because in my own little way, I feel like I get to contribute. So thank you for that.
No, I'm all about the joint effort and seeking out the expertise of other people who have more experience, certainly than I do. And, I think if people understand that weaning is not, again, just switching from a liquid diet to a solid food, it's the kittens' bodies are changing, their teeth are changing, their gut is changing. There's just all these things going on, and you don't want to just go from 0 to 60. You really want to ease them into that process. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you have the rest of your life to eat solid food. So why not
So much time.
Hang with mom a little longer or hang on the bottle a little longer? That's what I think. There's no rush. So, Mikel, I have one final question for you, and it's a silly would you rather question. But it's silly, but I mean it seriously. I want a serious answer to the question, okay? So my question is, would you rather have, for one day, cat ears where you could hear exactly like a cat, or for one day, would you rather have cat eyes and be able to see exactly like a cat? And if you knew that you were going to have one full day, this is the second part of the question, either with cat ears or cat eyes, what would you study? Like, what study would you set up? What knowledge would you hope to learn from either having cat ears or cat eyes for a day?
Wow, this is great. I have to digest this for a second. These images are really cracking me up. Well, that's super interesting. I mean, I feel like, I mean, I would definitely want it to be something
I sprung this one on you.
Yeah, you did. I'd want to be able to take advantage of this new ability. So I worry that the cat vision might be wasted on me because I'm very much a day person. I'm a morning person. And so I would probably be sleeping most of the time that my eyes were able to show me all the cool things that cats can see. Um, so I think I would go for the hearing what cats could hear, partly because also some cats are so sensitive to sound in their environment. And then I always wonder, when you have those cats that seem to like see a ghost, and you're like, you hear something that I don't, I mean, of course, it could be that they see something I can't see. And now I picked the ears instead of the eyes. So now I don't know. But
So you can
I
only
feel like
choose one.
if I was going to step into cats' paws, it would be to experience the sounds that they experience because, I'm the kind of person that also like I sleep with a white noise machine and I always wondered if it bothered my cat, because it's like she has they have a wider range of hearing than we do. So maybe it sounds really horrible and abrasive. So I think I would want to know if I was really making them miserable with household noises or not. And I would also just want to know like what it's like to hear. So we know cats hear both below our range of hearing and above. I would love to know like what the neighborhood
What can they
birds
hear?
and mice were saying, or rats, perhaps,
Or
yeah,
squirrels.
or squirrels. It's true. So yeah, I'm going for the cat ears.
Okay, well, that was a great answer. I appreciate that. And sorry if I creeped you out with a picture of you with cat eyes. I really enjoyed photoshopping that. So
It's
I'm
great.
sorry, and you're welcome. But thank you so much for talking with me. It's been really, really fun, and I always just love any opportunity to catch up and hear what you're doing. So, in addition to the kitten weaning study, are there other ways that people can either participate in what you're doing or keep up on the latest science? Where can people find you? Can people hire you to be their cat behavior consultant? Tell me where people can find you.
Sure. If you are looking to hire a cat behavior consultant, you can go to my business website, which is felineminds.com. And right now I'm in the process of revamping my personal website. It's mikeldelgado.com, but that also, you can contact me through there. It has information about my research, information on, press contact, that sort of thing. So that's kind of from there, you can find me everywhere else. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you so much for
Michael.
having me.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Oh my gosh. I could talk to her. I could talk to her for hours, but I don't know how much time the rest of you guys have. So we have to cut it off there. But thank you for watching. I hope that you guys learned as much as I did. Just awesome. So, she's just awesome. I want to thank Royal Canin again for partnering with me on this as part of their Catology series. You can visit royalcanin.com/cathealth and learn about all of their cat health initiatives that they have going on right now. Some really, really cool stuff. Like one thing that I want to mention is you can actually join a Cat to Vet sweepstakes right now. And if you win, you're going to get a prize pack full of like food and supplies, everything you need to prep for your next vet visit with your cat. Every single person who goes on there and joins the sweepstakes is also going to take home some fun stuff from Royal Canin, the hematuria detection product, which is great for just popping into your cat's litter box and monitoring for any urinary concerns. So definitely go to royalcanin.com/cathealth to find out how you can join the sweepstakes and participate in that. I want to encourage everyone to join next week. I'm going to be talking with the folks from PetSmart Charities and Banfield about how anybody can go and adopt a cat and access veterinary care for that cat. So we're going to be talking about all of the basics of adoption and what you need to do after. So that's going to be a really fun conversation. So please join me next time. And in the meantime, stay curious, stay compassionate, and I'll see you again next week on Kitten Lady and Friends.